Okay, I think I'm live. Here we go. So I'm going to talk about my Winnebago Revel 2021 um, Revel and 2020 Mercedes Benz Sprinter. So the first video I made, I just gotten it and I had just driven around town and everything else. And, I remember having a good time driving it. It drives really, really well when you're in the city. I mean, absolutely fantastic until you start getting around 65, 70 miles an hour. Then you really start feeling like you're more in a bus than you are in a vehicle, for example. So um, I actually just got back from a trip a few days ago. I took it out for about a little bit over a week, 10 days, I think it was, 9 days. And I was camping, so did a lot of driving, did a lot of camping. I think I drove a total of, oh my goodness, I shouldn't have said that because now I don't know how long I drove. So let me see, I drove from Colorado, I went to Moab, and from Moab to Sedona, Sedona to Phoenix, Phoenix to New Mexico, Las Vegas, New Mexico, which is very deceiving, not the same place. Um, Las Vegas, New Mexico to uh, back to Colorado, Denver. And so um, I camped in it most of the time, except when I was in Phoenix, where I managed to stay with a friend. So camped in it most of the time, um, out in the desert. Also camped out at a Walmart in Las Vegas, New Mexico for that trip home. So that was just overnight. So what were my experiences? I think when I posted my last video, somebody had um, they asked me something specific, but I told them that I would respond in video, and this is the video in response to that. I think your name was Dave or David. Don't quote me on that, but this is a response to that. So I've got some stuff written down here on my phone, so I'm just going to read through that. So if I'm looking down, I'm looking down at my phone. So these are not necessarily in any particular order, so I didn't sit down and grade them like this is the worst and this is the best. I literally just wrote it down and I'm going to read it. The first thing I want to talk about, this is actually silly. I'm reading it right now and I'm like, why am I talking about that? But it's the bathroom door. The bathroom door is very magnetic. Like if you try to pull on it, it's actually pretty resistant to opening. And you would think, hey, this is a good thing. You want your door to not be loose so that when you're driving, it just doesn't come flying open. But at the same time, you get the feeling, or I get the feeling when I'm trying to open it, that it it could have been better. All right. So, but anyways, that's absolutely small and silly. Um, I'm going to move on to the next thing, which is the back. So the way I have mine set up, and I will try to input some video of my organization in the back, but I've got these, I think they're 27-gallon HDX totes from um, Home Depot, and I have four of them. So what I do is that I stack them up, one, two, three, four in the back. The bed will go down about three-quarters or a little bit over that, but it doesn't go all the way down. So you can actually sleep like that. And I did that the very first night. I just put some blankets and things like that on the top end and on the bottom end because the bed does not level off. So otherwise your pillows would just keep dropping. So I rolled up some blankets and I put them on the at the top end and on the bottom end where your feet would go. And that actually that actually worked for one night and I slept like that and it was just fine. If you wanted to actually sleep with the bed completely down, you'd have to take them out and put them, just four of them on the floor, but then that takes out a lot of your garage space for anything else. So um, the point of this wasn't actually storage, but that's also a very good thing. The point was the GLSS system. I'm hoping that I'm saying that right, by Canyon Adventure Vans, I think it is. We'll correct it in the description if it's not. But they've got the system that basically turns the back of your Revel into the garage of your Revel, if you will, into a living room. So you can actually sit back there. It also has a day bed option, and it really cleans it up, I think, and it's a nice system. A little expensive. I mean, depending on what you think expensive is, of course, that's all um, based on who you are. But I think it's 3,000 or 3,600 $3,600 for it. Um, but I like that system because you've got more usable space. Traveling in the Revel, I would be sitting in the front, and while sitting in the front, you can turn the passenger and the driver's seat around, and then you can also use that table, the oval table, which is another horrible little thing, which I'll talk about later if I remember. But it's got that table, and then you can turn the driver's seat around, and then a passenger can sit on the bench, and then you can sit on the other side in the seat. But when you're sitting like that, for me, I'm a little bit over 6 foot, and it's very hard for me to use that table. It feels weird. It's like too, what is it, too high? Yeah, the table is too high, and you can't crank the chair up high enough for you to actually feel right using that table at my height. You may have a different experience, but at my height, that's what that looks in, or that's what that feels like. Um, so it doesn't, and, and the table itself is just small. There's not a lot you can do there. Like if you were going to open a laptop and use it, and your passenger or whoever else you're with in the van was going to use a laptop too, that would be pretty tight quarters on that table. So not ideal for that kind of a setup. The GLSS system, however, you could totally do that because it creates a dinette type situation in the back where, two people can sit on one end of the table and actually do something, work or whatever it is. Which brings me to another thing, playing card games, playing things like that. You can't do that, on a you can play card games, but very simple card games. Something with a deck and maybe what do you call it, like Crazy Eights or something like that. Something that doesn't require a lot of space. But the moment you try to play anything substantial, your monopolies, your board games, and things like that, you do not have enough room on that little table. So again, another point for the GLSS system. Um, I want to get that because I think to complete the van, that's actually what you need there. So that was the point of that is, yeah, GLS system is kind of cool. I don't know that anybody else makes it, but or makes a system similar to it. I've seen videos where people have created their own, but I like the GLS S. Chris. I like the GLS. They should name it something else. I like the GLSS system because it looks like they've thought about a lot of things, and it also has bed rises that you can then add so your bed doesn't go all the way down. If you remember the situation I was just talking about, how when I've got my totes down there, my bed doesn't come all the way down and I got to roll up blankets and put them at the top. The GLSS system has a system where they've got risers basically, which end up being cabinets as well. So you can actually store things in them, which increases your storage, which in a Revel, that's super important, right? Because there's not a lot of storage in that. But the GLSS bed riser system is also something pretty cool. And the regular GLSS system also gives you storage underneath, and I've seen people do a microwave, and a microwave would be pretty cool too. But I've seen people do a microwave, and it's got storage in there, and it uses up a lot of space that's otherwise empty. And then you still have a section in the middle of the two sides, the driver's and the passenger side, where you could still fit probably one of those 27-gallon totes or two if you stacked them one on top of the other, or three if you raised your bed all the way to the top, and so you could still, put stuff in there or put a bicycle in. Okay, so that's a GLSS system, and I think that's definitely something that you would want if you were traveling in it. Let's see, not enough room for two adults or for more than two adults. Excellent point. So there were two of us and a dog, and that basically it filled up the whole van. The dog tries to walk back and forth, and you're trying to cook, and it's pretty tight quarters. And I know some people live in these vans, but you have to be a special kind of person to be able to do that. I've watched some videos of people that do it. They're traveling quite consistently, and they, for the most part, living in these vans. And so I don't want to say it's impossible, but I do have to say that you have to be a particular kind of person. You can't just be, for example, the average person lives in a three-bedroom house with a two-car garage, or whatever it is. If you live in the Midwest, or if you live in New York, you're used to tighter spaces, of course, but um, not a lot of room in there. And so I saw a question on one of the Facebook pages that somebody was asking, can a family of four, travel in this van or stay in this van or whatever it is? You could do it, Again, we go back to that GLSS system and those bed risers. If you were to do that and then have sleeping quarters, create some kind of a sleeping system underneath that bed, you could essentially sleep four adults. But with the 2021 Revel, as it comes from the factory, it no longer has that sleeper, that bench sleeper in the front. I think they stopped doing that in 2020. Um, so it doesn't have a bed up there. I've seen people do a setup where they've created a platform over the drivers and passenger seats, and then kind of like a hammock type situation almost. And then you can sleep somebody who's not too tall, or I mean, I guess they can be tall, 6 foot or so because of the length end to end. But as it's configured from the factory, two people are meant to sleep in it. Anything more than that, you're going to have to get a little creative to get that done. Somebody can always sleep on a mat underneath the bed, but not a lot of room underneath if the bed's all the way down. So you just make sure you're not claustrophobic, but you could sleep there. Um, I'm going to move on to another thing, which is suspension. So we talked about driving in the city. And I said, everything is totally fine in my last video when you're driving in the city at 65 or under 65 miles per hour. You feel like you're in control. It's a different story though once you start going highway speeds, which I noticed, going to Utah or driving, yeah, to Utah, the speed limit's 80. So, people are doing 85. And trying to do 85 in that van is it's an interesting event, I mean, I still got passed by people. There's a lot of revels on the street these days, and just regular and just sprinter vans in general. So not even necessarily revels, but people would pass me that were doing speeds that were higher than my own, and I thought it was kind of interesting. So people do it, but personally, in my opinion, when I'm driving 65, I feel like that's the speed it should be doing. Fast forward to off-roading. And I'm not even talking Jeep off-roading. So first of all, I'm going to preface this by talking about my experience. I come from the Jeep world, so I've had the Jeeps, I've had a Ford Raptor, and I've driven all these vehicles off-road, and airing down is important. You air down your vehicle, you're going to get a better ride. But you can drive a Raptor without airing it down off-road and still have a pretty decent time. Same thing with the Jeep. Um, and still be okay. The Revel, on the other end, I drove it off road without airing down. I hadn't completed my compressor installation yet, so I drove it off road and I could not air down, and it was not super fun times. There was a road out in Sedona, I believe it was, just going up to one of my campsites up there, and the road was kind of washed out. Um, it was very uneven, right? And I could feel the van just violently tip from side to side whenever I would go down. I had to drive like 5 miles per hour or less. And I discussed this with other members on the forum, and they mentioned that they've driven theirs off road and it wasn't quite that bad. This is all subjective, right? I don't know what roads they were driving on. Um, I don't know what they consider acceptable and what's not acceptable. So this is one of those things that maybe everybody should try it themselves. But from my experience, and I'm a driver and I have had vehicles and I have driven off-road. From my experience, driving a Revel off-road is is not super good times. especially a stock Revel or a stock Sprinter, maybe even a stock Sprinter. I don't know. The Revel is, of course, outfitted with the bathroom and whatever else not. I also had a bunch of luggage in the back, so that may also factor into it. Like, are these people driving their vans empty with nothing else in them? But my experience is that driving it off road the way it is from the factory is not good times. If you're going to spend any significant amount of time off road, I would say you need to get a suspension kit. Now, I'm not talking about a lift kit. I'm talking about like Agile Off Road has their RIP kit. I think RIP stands for Ride Improvement Package, I think is what it is. You can go to agileoffroad.com and figure it out. But um, they've got that, and people swear by it. People that have it say it tremendously improves your vehicle. Another thing, actually, this is not even an off-road situation, but it's just leaving my driveway. The standard driveway has a little dip where it goes from your driveway onto the actual road surface itself, and same kind of thing. When I go down that, it's just a lot of tipping, side to side, and Agile Off-Road actually specifically talks about that and says their kit improves that. And then a side effect or a benefit to that as well is that it gives you about a 2-inch lift. So, better off-roading if you've got a little bit more of a lift. So that's, more good news there. There's also, what are those guys? I should have written some of this down, but there's another kit, and I will remember it, and I'll put it in the description here if at the end of the video. But they also make a kit, and it's I think I like that they use the adjustable shocks, and you can have an argument back and forth about how often you would actually adjust it, but I just like to have the option of adjusting it. So I would be tempted to go with that system. Um, but oh, I wish I remembered what it is. Um, so they've got the Falcon adjustable suspension system now. They switched from Fox and they use these Falcons, and they've got a video on YouTube, so you can go on YouTube and watch these videos. I think it's a Van Compass, Van Campus, Compass, Van Compass. Van Compass is the company. I just remembered it. So they've got their own kit. Basically, I think they label theirs a lift kit. It's a 2-inch lift kit, and just go to their website. This is not really to talk about any particular make and convince you to buy them or whatever, but vancompass.com or something like that. Go to their website and you can check it out and read about it. I'm not a professional. This video is not, is just a guy with a van talking about his experiences. So if you lower your expectations a little bit, you may actually enjoy it. So um, they've got a kit that I've looked at as well, and it's got the adjustable shock system. And I think that's kind of cool because if you load up your van, you can adjust it. And if you are unloaded, you can adjust it again. If you're driving off road, adjust it. So I actually spoke with Agile Off Road about that, and I asked them what they would say to that, but well, their counter was theirs comes adjusted for most of everybody out there. So for the most part, they take your vehicle, they figure out exactly what you need, and it's adjusted for that, and you're good to go for the majority of people. If you're towing a lot, I guess, or you're towing off and on, and you've got all these dynamic situations that you're in, definitely, I think you should go with an adjustable one. But if you're the average driver, you go camping, you drive off road a little bit, you drive on the road, once in a while you tow, I think you'd be okay with Agile Off Road. Um, a lot of people have done that and they seem to like it just fine. But a lot of people have also done Van Compass. So it's not like Van Compass. So it's not like it's not like people aren't doing it. So. Um, the what I was getting at is just get one of those. It doesn't matter to me which one you get, but you definitely need one of those if you're going to be spending any amount of time off road. And just, I think it'll improve your on road performance as well because you do. Another thing was wind on the highway. You start driving down the highway, there's going to be, like sometimes you pass on the interstate, they've got those signs you're passing through a high wind area. And it's it's pretty interesting. I think for a good amount of time there on the highway, I was driving with the steering wheel kind of cocked sideways just to keep the van on the road. So um, they say or they claim that these kits will also improve things like that. Sorry, when I'm reaching out like this, my laptop has actually gone to sleep. It keeps recording, but it's gone to sleep, and so I reach out to um, start it up again. So, anyways, that kit, Agile Off-Road Van Compass, they're supposed to improve your road drivability, your off-road drivability, your swaying back and forth, driving in windy conditions, high-speed driving, all those kinds of things. It's supposed to kind of just even it out so you can have a better time driving. So I know we just talked about the very annoying lane departure um, correction system, but one thing that I do like about the driving aids, we'll call them that, is the cruise control system. So the Mercedes Benz Sprinter, at least the 2020 that I have, has that adaptive cruise control system where if there's a car in front of you and you're set at 70 miles per hour, the car in front of you is doing 60 or whatever, a slower speed, it comes up on that car and it kind of slows down by itself. And that's kind of cool, right? Because it's got that radar or whatever in the front. Um, I've actually driven this in different cars. Like I think it came out in 2007. I had a BMW back then, and it had this system in it, but you actually had to adjust it, like how far you wanted to stop, one car length, two car lengths, or whatever else not. On the Sprinter, I don't think you can adjust it, but it was stopping or slowing down just at the distance that I felt was optimum. So it was actually perfect for me. I didn't feel like it was waiting until it was like last minute and then stopping. Absolutely what I thought was the best, um, um, the ideal point that it should be stopping at. A crazy story about this is um, that actually kind of supports how good this system is that I do not like cruise control. Like I can drive 600 miles with just my foot on the gas pedal, and I pick 60 or 65 or whatever that speed limit is, and I can actually, it's like a magic power, but I can hold my foot at that particular speed for my whole trip. But it's a new van, and I figured I give it a chance and kind of see what it feels like. And I used it, and I actually did like it, and I just kept it, I kept it on for the most part, except when I was driving through canyons, which there was a lot of that, or extremely windy roads, things like that. I just don't feel comfortable, especially, I don't know if it's, but just in general, or also because of this van and the feeling you get, especially when it's gusty and you're being kind of thrown around a little bit, or when you're going through real sharp curves, the vehicle just kind of has some body roll to it, and you don't really feel extremely planted to the ground. So having cruise control on at the same time, it just kind of gives me the feeling that the vehicle is just hurtling forward uncontrolled. So I tend to just want to control it by myself. At least if I've got my foot on the gas pedal, I can be a little bit dynamic. Let it go, push it down, let it go. But then your gas mileage also is not very good. So then there's that, which actually brings us to our next point that we can talk about. So I use this system or this application, which I'm going to pull up right now on my phone. It's called Road Trip, and I use it um, to track my gas mileage. And this is my Revel right here, and this is some of this is the gas mileage that I experienced during my trip, and this is doing. Sorry, let me try to get it in a place where you can see it. Okay, I'm also going to read them off, but this is the numbers right here, and um, I was doing an average of maybe 65, 60, 50s and canyon roads or whatever else not. But for the whole trip, I got, you know, 15, 13, or 13.6, 13.4, 15.28, 12.79, 14.44, 17.93, I think was my very first gas mileage that's driving in the city. So these are the gas mileages that I've been getting with the vehicle. Driving on the interstate, I would say you would get an average of 14 miles per gallon, which is not ridiculous, and it's not that bad for such a big vehicle, right? So 14 miles per gallon on the interstate. Okay, here's another thing I almost forgot about, the heat. So the first night I camped, I was in Moab, and Moab, Utah, it gets pretty cold, right? So it was like 11-degree mornings. So who knows what it reached or what it dropped down to at night. So, but I remember checking the temperature in the morning, and it was 11 degrees. The Revel heating system is absolutely fantastic, right? It's it doesn't feel dry or any of those kinds of things, but it's actually legitimately hot. I remember waking up in the middle of the night and actually turning it back down because on the forums and things like that, people had said keep it up at like 70 to avoid freezing and things like that. But at 70, it was legitimately it was unbearable in there. It was plenty hot. So I ended up turning it down to like 60 degrees or 62 or something like that, and that was a little bit more comfortable to sleep in. But absolutely fantastic heating system. I can't say enough good things about that. And as far as the pipes are concerned, we can segue into that. My pipes did not freeze at all at that heat setting, and I was able to have all my water and stuff working just fine without having to worry about that. Um, so that's a big shout out for the heating system. Okay, let's talk about um, just general driving maneuverability, or not that, but maneuvering in the city while I was driving. So sooner or later, you're camping, you got to drive through a city. Loved that aspect of it, right? The Revel is so small. It's like, well, not height-wise, but at least length-wise. It's about the length of a pickup truck. So if you've ever driven a pickup through a city, it's the same kind of feeling driving a Revel for the most part. You can park in the same spaces, and you don't feel like you're driving a semi through a city. So I remember driving through Sedona, and that's a pretty small city right there. And you you don't get the feeling that your vehicle is it's too big to be driving through that. So that was actually kind of cool. And that leads me to the second point. Well, along the same lines, just driving off road, there was a campsite that I ended up using, which there was a pretty tight turn going up to it, and I was able to easily maneuver going up that, go between some trees, and come up on my campground without feeling like I was trying to maneuver once again a semi through a place where it's not supposed to be. So that was actually pretty good too. So, okay. So we're going to talk about poop. Sooner or later, you got to do it. Okay. So one of the reasons why I went with the Revel is having a complete bathroom, the shower, the toilet, the cassette toilet that it has in it. It's just kind of convenient for me. And I think it makes it all worthwhile, just having it and just having it being a stand-alone system, so you don't have to set it up first. It's just always there, it's ready to go when you're ready to go. You see what I did there? um, so let's see. Two people uh, in 3, 4 days, I think. Mm, don't quote me on this, but I think in about 3 days worth of, or maybe even less than that. But we managed to use it to the point where it was pretty full. It's a 5 gallon cassette, but with the flushing and um, things like that, it seems to, anyways, don't quote me on the days and things like that, but it seems to fill up faster than what one might think 5 gallons is. Like 5 gallons seems like a lot of stuff. But the point here is it fills up faster than what you think um, it would. So what do you do? Do you get another one? Fortunately, we were able to dump it at a place that was close by. And the beauty, once again, of that is that you can take it to any bathroom facility. If you're at a campground, there's a porta john, you can dump it in there, and so you don't have to worry about that aspect of it. It doesn't have to be dumped in a particular spot of some sort. You can even take it into a restroom, I guess, at a McDonald's. It'd be kind of weird, I think, but um, carrying it through, McDonald's, but you could dump it there, is the bottom line. So I like that it's got it in there. If it was a little bit bigger, I feel like that'd be just that much better. Maybe just 2 more gallons. I feel like it would get you a whole lot more usage out of that. But like I said, we were able to find a place to dump it, so that didn't end up being a big problem. And along with that, I guess, is uh, how was my first experience trying to dump that? Was it, I know a lot of people, well, I've, this is going to sound, I've had tons of vehicles. I'm just like this person that goes through a lot of vehicles, unfortunately. And I've done a fifth wheel as well. And a fifth wheel has the gray water tank and it's got the black water. And there's always horror stories about the first time you ever try to dump that, the black water, which is all your bathroom water. And, from it's splashing all over the place, getting in your face. So whatever horror stories you've heard about. So there's a little bit of uh, um, a fear when it comes to these systems. So, for my first time, I didn't even have to necessarily read a manual. The first time using my cassette in my Revel, I have to say it was a pretty, pleasant experience. You unlock that, you push the 2 buttons, you open it up, you pull the cassette out. It's clean. It's not like there's poop all around it or pee all over it. It was just absolutely clean. I pulled that out and I was able to dump it. And this is after driving off road. We just talked earlier on about how lousy the drive was off road with all the swinging back and forth. And with all that happening, I'm glad to say that I pulled out my cassette at the end of that period and I was able to comfortably dump it out. The first time I used gloves because I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be pretty nasty. I had gloves on, you know, and it wasn't like that at all. Beautiful. It's not a, I mean, I was about to say beautiful experience. It, it was a good experience. You don't have to worry about it. So for people who are concerned about using it and they don't want to use it, use it. It's one of those benefits I think of having a Revel is having that bathroom or the bathroom, yeah, and the cassette in it. So that's my poopy experience. And um, storage, I guess, is the last thing. I did kind of touch on it, and um, what I have on my van, and I think I've got a video on here. If I don't, I'll put a video up doing a tour of the system that I have. I do have the owl system on the back for my spare wheel tire, and I actually have the B2, which is also by Owl, is basically a bike and box. So you can put the bicycles on top, and it's got a box that goes at the bottom of that. I have not received my box yet, so when I did my last trip, I had to find ways of storing everything inside, you know. So that actually, when I get that box, I think it's going to tremendously improve how I organize things and how I'm able to stash things away. And that GLSS system as well kind of has storage situations inside it where you can kind of stow things away or hide things away, and then that'll also improve that. But not a lot of storage in there. So then the last thing I want to talk about is just my overall impressions from having the van for and living in it for a week. Um, would I buy it again? Yes, I would buy it again. I think it's an awesome vehicle. The way I look at it is it's a good platform to build onto. They give you this pretty substantial platform, but there's definitely things that you can do to fix it and make it a little bit better. Um, the things I've just mentioned are some, and you'll experience some of your own. Oh, let me talk about this. I kind of touched on it as well in my last video, but it's even more significant when you're driving longer distances and you're in the van for longer periods of time. The lane departure system seems a little extreme. I've had nice vehicles before that have these systems in them, and I feel like maybe in combination with the suspension system as well and the speed that you're traveling with or at, and just the whole package of the Sprinter van, it does not seem to work very well. Um, it's too jarring. You know, if I'm driving 65 miles an hour and then I start drifting maybe a little bit, like we all do, right? Nobody drives in a completely straight line. Maybe there's a piece of debris on the road you don't want to hit, so you drift a little bit to the shoulder off the road. It's it's pretty aggressive the way it tries to push you back to onto the road. Way too aggressive. And I know what you're thinking. Shut it off. So that's also very interesting because if you shut it off, every time you turn the engine off, it turns itself on again. So you always have to remember to turn it off. And as far as I know, there's not a way to turn it off completely, so it just doesn't come up. So something you have to deal with, and something that I think is actually pretty annoying, especially when you're driving long distances. You always want to remember to turn that off. Um, I think that's about it for right now. Honestly, I can't think of anything else. Again, overall impressions, I think it's a buy, but definitely consider other options. There's a Storyteller Overland mode or Beast, something like that. But anyways, they make vans too. Um, Sprinter vans with the 144 chassis. The difference being why I like the Revel is the bathroom. You know, it's got a complete bathroom. You don't have to set it up. It's just always there and ready to use. I think that's kind of cool, and that was my particular selling point, I think, for one. But maybe in another video, I can talk back and forth about those two things. I just more wanted to talk about my trip, how it went, and my experiences. And I will also try to maybe throw in some video in here about some of the campsites I was on if I find it relevant, or I may not. So if it goes blank after I stop speaking, that means I didn't add it. But anyways, that's my impressions of living in a Revel for 9, 10 days and my experiences. Thanks for watching.